Welcome to Como Diablos, and in English, it's Held Up. I'm excited because with me today I have a community leader who truly loves his community, and even if it's not his own, he's always willing to lend a hand to other communities that need that extra help. He was a senator for the state of California, and he's currently the city council member of the 14th district in Los Angeles. How are you, Mr. De Leon? Or like we like to call him, who know him, KDL. How are you?
Diablito. I'm doing well. Gracias por la invitación.
So let's get started. ¿Cómo diablos did all this start for you, man?
Es una locura, al final de cuentas. Yo nunca jamás esperaba ser un político. Soy hijo, el más chico, de una familia de tres. Soy más chico. Mi mamá fue, en aquel entonces, madre soltera, inmigrante con solo 3 años escolares completados. Cruzó frontera en busca del sueño dorado como millones de personas, de nuestra gente, de México, de Centroamérica, de Sudamérica. Y pues, para ser muy sincero, nunca fui yo un estudiante con buenas calificaciones. Al contrario, mi mamá fue limpiaba casas, fue camarera en las colinas, las zonas más exclusivas en San Diego, con frontera con Tijuana, Baja California. Y mi mamá pasaba casi todo el día, desde la madrugada hasta la noche, limpiando casas y trabajando como camarera y también cuidando las personas de tercera edad, pero con mucho billete, sí, en una colonia exclusiva que se llama La Joya, California. Okay. Las colinas con mansiones y vistas panorámicas del Océano Pacífico. Pero mi mamá fue madre y padre y pagó el techo, agua, luz, la comida para sus hijos, la ropa, pagó todas las mensualidades como madre soltera con solo 3 años escolares completados. Y digo eso porque la historia mía no es una historia única ni original, porque es la historia de toda nuestra gente. Claro. Pero particularmente yo quisiera enfatizar el papel de nuestras madres, particularmente madres solteras que sufren mucho, claro, para sus hijos. Y yo quiero ser muy sincero, jamás esperaba ser un político.
A ver, take us back to when Keven De Leon was a kid, before a politician. Who was Keven De Leon? Like, who was he, man? Like,
bueno, soy fronterizo, de Tijuana y San Diego, de una...
Were you a little politician as a kid?
No, actually,
were you like negotiating deals with your friends on the school playground? I mean, hold on, man. Look, if you have 2 marbles, I get you 2 more. You know, were you that? Or
the funny thing about it is, I told you this, is if you went into la primaria, elementary school,
right,
2nd, 3rd, 4th grade, and you were to see me back then, you would not walk away impressed at all whatsoever. Sometimes folks will walk into a classroom and they said, that young man is going to be the president of the United States. Wow. That young woman right there, wow, she will be the first woman president of the United States of America. If you were to see me, Kevin, there's nothing special, nothing extraordinary, nothing spectacular at all whatsoever. I was, I think, a late bloomer in many ways. Back in la primaria, la secundaria, la preparatoria, I was always a nice guy.
Right.
Me llevaba bien con todo el mundo, ¿no? If you were, cholillo, me llevaba bien con ellos. If you were a skateboarder, me llevaba bien con ellos. If you were, back in the days, stoner, yo me llevaba bien con todo el mundo, ¿no?
Were you any of those skaters, stoner?
I was not a
BMXer, surfer?
No, I was just myself, but I was respectful of everybody. I did skateboard a little bit, but not at the level of what these young men and young women do, which is phenomenal.
You were like me, a poser. We would have our skateboards, but we would never...
The high skateboard was plastic. We bought it at Woolworths back in the day. It was made out of plastic, But, my mom worked really hard. And so I grew up in un barrio que se llama Barrio Logan or Logan Heights. I went to school, came back, I hung out with my friends. But there was nothing really extraordinary that you could sort of tell in the future, he's going to become a senator one day in the future, or going to run for mayor, U.S. Senate, or become a city council member in Los Angeles. I think I was a beneficiary of many people who actually believed in me and who helped me and who helped pick me up in many ways when I didn't have the confidence in myself. And so, I grew up in the barrio. I would come home, there were some years, I'd just be in the house by myself. I remember in the kindergarten, I'd be in the house by myself until las 9 de la noche. When my mom, would come up, and then I would eat, and yo me dormí en el sofá.
Right.
Because we had a one-bedroom apartment, so yo me dormí en el sofá.
Did your mom leave you food made? Because I know my mom did the same for me. She would leave early in the morning. She would leave me, lock the door, and I would be watching TV. But I already, for some reason, it came naturally to know what time I had to eat. So she would leave me like a sandwich or whatever, and would hold me until they got back. Yeah. So something similar.
Caldo de pollo, cocido arroz, food that, I just had to warm up. There was no microwave ovens back in the day, so they didn't exist. So we just had to warm it up. But back in the day, it was so different because, today it would be considered child abuse. And today, child things that are will show up in a heartbeat. But women back then, like my mother, and quite frankly, women today, sometimes they have no choice, because if they don't work, they'll end up homeless and living on the streets, right? But the standards have changed quite dramatically, and sometimes actually not very fair to women who are struggling in many ways. So I'd be in the house by myself for certain years, not all the time, but there were certain years I would come home and I was alone, 5, 6 years old, and I'd walk outside and I would get on my bicycle. I would,
Different times. And ¿qué travesura te recuerdas haciendo while your mom left? Because I remember thinking I was grown up. So did you do any grown up stuff in there?
Would jump over people's fences, run all over the place. I wouldn't come home till like maybe 9 p.m. at night, todo sudado, con hambre, hanging out in the park. I remember one time, unos amigos, it was funny because hay un parque que se llama Chicano Park, donde hay muchos murales gigantescos.
San Diego.
San Diego, yeah, under the Coronado Bridge. Beautiful murals. And it's the only park that exists in Logan Heights. It's the only one that exists. Right. En aquel entonces yo vivía en un callejón. And we rented a room in a house, my mother and I at the time. And the house was, next to un callejón. And, unos cholillos, just hanging out, and, hey, why don't you come with us, Kevin? I said, okay. Now I'm in the back seat, and they were like, we're going to go throw down with sofás, with nada barrio. And I'm in the back seat, they're like, oh my, they didn't get inside the car, what am I doing here? And I want to get out of the car, but, if I get out of the car, they're going to say, I'll jump you. Yeah, they're going to jump me. I don't know. Thank God no one showed up at the time, But, just run around, because it was a very different time. My mom's working. Right. There was no cable, there was no nothing, there was no PlayStation.
No, cell phones, nothing.
Nothing like that. Cell phones, yeah.
So being from the barrio near Tijuana, San Diego, your mom always working. So what made you want, or what opened up your eyes to become a politician? What made you veer to that road?
That's a very good question, because I think that the one thing that as I grew older, when you're immersed in poverty, oftentimes you don't even realize, there's an old adage that says ignorance is bliss. So you're ignorant of your circumstances. All you are aware of that this is the way you live, but you don't question the reasons why you live this way. Or you don't question, why is it that we have no parks? Why is it that there's a lot of crime? Why is it that there's a lot of liquor stores and those supermarkets? Why is it that there's a lot of pollution, a lot of crime, muchos delincuentes, etc., etc.? Because you're so immersed in it, right? That you think that's your life. It's normal. It's normal. Exactly. It's normalized as part of your everyday life. And I applied to 3 universities.
Oh, wow.
UCLA, UC Berkeley, and UC Santa Barbara. And then I got 3 letters, and I opened up one letter, And it was, I regret to inform you that, I've been rejected. Yeah. And the second letter,
How did you feel about the first one? What your emotions, real quick?
well, and I applied to Berkeley. I know it was a hope and a prayer, but I just said, what the hell, just go for it anyway.
Did you have the good grades?
I did not have the great grades. I did not have.
Okay, so you already knew right off the back.
Yeah, I didn't have great grades.
But you did anyway.
I thought maybe there was a shot. There was that chance. Also, I said, what the hell, just go for it.
Exactly. That's what that.
You don't know until you try, and if you fail, that's okay.
That's exactly what this podcast is all about, Kevin. Letting kids know that you just got to try it. Nowadays, and if I get emotional, I'm sorry, because I got a 70-year-old who did exactly the same. She's, she's applied to all these schools with great grades.
Yeah.
And I was telling Leslie earlier that they denied her in all of them, and I'm like, why? She's not even devastated. I'm glad she's not. She took it like you.
Yeah.
Like, I tried, but I'm like looking at it like, no, why? You did good in school. You went every day. You did certain curriculars,
Activities.
There's no way, So that's just life. I'm sorry.
No, but you know what? I think that's a good point, because I think that, to your point, Guilvito, when you grow up in a barrio and you grow up under very tough circumstances, you get knocked down a lot. And I think it's how we get back up and how we recover. And I think that life is a lot of hard knocks, and life is tough, and it beats you down, hard. And I know in many different ways, in my journey, in my path, but it's how you get back up and how, you recover from it, and how you dust yourself off and move forward. I got 3 letters of rejection.
But that attitude of yours for the first letter to say, well, that's incredible, because not a lot of us have it. And me as a parent, I don't have it, and you and my daughter have it. And that's amazing, because it says a lot about you guys.
I think you have to do big things. I think you have to go for it. Sometimes you'll fail, but I think we live in a society that crucifies you, especially in the political world. In the political world, people are afraid to make mistakes for fear of failure. And because of the internet, social media platforms, people will criticize you severely. They'll make fun of you. Cyberbullying is, it's incredible what you'll see. What we don't accept in society, people who verbally and physically bully someone, it's become some reason acceptable on social media platforms. And that happens a lot. I've been a target of an incredible amount of hostility and what I would consider verbal bullying. But if you believe in your values and your principles, and you believe in yourself, it's how you move forward, even if you have incredible gale winds
blowing against
you. If you do believe in yourself, you just one step forward, and good things can happen if you do big things. What happens in my world of politics is that there are a lot of elected officials, politicians in general, at every level of government, federal, state, local, that they are fearful of making big risks because of the potential of the failure. The bigger the risk, the bigger the potential of the failure. The bigger the risk, the potential bigger payoff as well too. And I think that because of what's happening in communities of color, in particular, whether it be Latinos, African Americans, Asian Americans, poor whites, it doesn't make a difference at the end of the day. I think that we need bold type of leadership, not tepid, measured, calculated type of leadership. But, there's the social media critics who will tear you down for every single thing.
And direct your vision another way to their vision, not yours.
And so that's why you have to, failure is part of life.
So do you think that bringing your mom, bringing you up all those days and leaving you by yourself, made you have that attitude when you got your first letter?
Que queda muy claro.
Yeah.
Yo quisiera enfatizar y subrayar lo siguiente, ¿no? Es mi mamá y mi tía Francisca, que es mi inspiración, 100%, que queda muy claro. Because the way I look at it is that they've been cleaning other people's homes, taking care of the very wealthy, when no one in the family would take care of their own.
Right.
That what they did and had the sacrifice and the courage to come to this country, anything that I withstand, it gives me the strength and vitality. I'm not always strong. I'm a human being. I have ups and I have downs. I have moments of vulnerability and weakness as a human being, but they do give me that sense of inspiration that in life you're going to fail, you're going to make mistakes. So you make big mistakes, small mistakes, it accumulates over the course of time, but you have to just keep moving if your commitment is strong on whatever issue it is.
Right.
For me, it's always been about social and economic justice for those who've marginalized, regardless of who you are and where you come from. And that's why I always have had a mission and a purpose, and people will knock you down. People will criticize you. People will come after you. They'll try to defeat you in every which way imaginable. To your point that you just made, my mom and my tia has been that motivation and inspiration.
Okay. So then after your first letter, you got your second letter, and that one said,
"Ooh, I regret to inform you that you're not going to be accepted."
that's the university. Your third letter?
It was a trifecta. No, rejection. All three letters I got rejected.
So what happened then? Because obviously this question was because your direction to become a politician, so you applied to colleges. So did this divert you from your idea, or?
No, I still didn't have the idea of becoming a politician. What happened is that I didn't know what to do. And just así de pura chiripada, I borrowed un coche de un tío mío, Proto, así se llama Proto. And me and a friend and I went and we drove. And that was the first time I drove to LA. Drove to Los Angeles. There was a Dodger game going on. We stopped by. There's a couple scalpers. We got a couple tickets. Watch a Dodger game. They said the tickets were right behind first base.
Oh wow!
That we bought. The tickets were right at the right field pole. In the outfield. That's what they were. Yeah, they sold it to us. Watched the game. Got back in the car and drove up the 101 freeway to UC Santa Barbara. We parked the car. Slept in the car. Got up in the morning. Went to a bathroom. Cleaned myself up. Wash up. And I went to the office of the director of admissions for EOP, early outreach program. I didn't have an appointment. I said, "Hi, my name's Keven, San Diego. No tengo cita. I don't have an appointment, but I have a rejection letter." So then they actually sat me down with the director of admissions for EOP. They had affirmative action at the time. I gave her my story, who I am. And then, by the grace of God, they said yes.
No way.
They accepted me. Yeah, through a special program, a very, very special program that gives them, I think, the latitude, the ability to say, you know what, El Diablito, we're going to pick him. His grades aren't great. His SAT scores are not great either. But we interviewed him personally. We believe that he has some potential. If we work with him, if we help him and lift him up, and I think under that criteria, they accepted me. So if I could say, be mindful about one thing. When I got to UC Santa Barbara, the first quarter, the second quarter, and the third quarter, I was on academic probation because I was on campus for the first time. I didn't know how to write well. I didn't know how to complete a sentence. So I needed a lot of extra help, assistance, from tutors,
right,
to really help me a lot, and but then later on, I became an organizer over there, and I started teaching English as a second language, primarily to undocumented students who are in the process of.
So is that how you were able to keep yourself in college for a bit?
Yes, I had financial aid because we were so poor. We were so poor that they had the financial aid, the Cal grants, the Pell grants, and other types of, financial aid. Pero para sobrevivir, I became an organizer, and I started, teaching ESL con un pizarrón, con un pedazo de gis, and I started teaching and taking fingerprints and photographs and filling out all the paperwork, I-130, to become a legal permanent resident for many workers. Up in Santa Barbara at that time, a lot of workers in the nurseries and carpintería, ahí se sembra y se cosecha el aguacate, right, a lot. Down in Oxnard, fresa, down in Peru and Naranja, it's because it's a very rich city, right? A very rich town. There's a lot of the camareras and the hotels and the resorts.
Right.
So there's a lot of Latinos there too who live there. And that's how I started an organization there called One Stop Immigration and Educational Center.
Before that, the One Stop organization that you did, do you think that you literally knocked on doors to get into college? You think that still works today? You think if like I said earlier, my daughter showed up with a rejection letter, hey, I got rejected by you guys. You think this still works for
I answer, so your daughter, I should have done this. I wish I'd have done that, but your daughter should take that letter and she should frame that letter. She should, or whichever letters that she has, she should frame those letters, and, as a source of motivation. And then 5 years from now, 10 years from now in the future, she look at that letter and that motivation, of what it felt like at that time and where she's at today, or what will she be at in the future, to say, right? I wish I would have kept those letters, and I wish I would have framed those letters. Those letters were here, they would be up at the wall of my office, sure, they'd be at the wall of my office. Not that they were bad individuals who rejected me, based on the criteria, I didn't qualify. There's no question. I didn't qualify, and there were other worthy students who did clearly qualify, but I just needed a fighting chance. That's all I needed, a fighting chance.
You did it, and you keep that attitude even till today. So you started the One Stop organization. Is that what kind of dipped your toes into wanting to become a politician?
But not yet. But it was the first time my mind expanded greatly. It was the first time that a lot of folks don't know. For a couple of years, I was homeless. I lived in first for a few months. I was sleeping in couches of my friends. Then I slept in my car, and then I slept on the floor of the offices where I worked at One Stop Immigration,
right,
an educational center, and that was for a couple of years. But that was the first time I started organizing. I started thinking differently. I started critically analyzing things. I started thinking, here we have all these immigrants who are hard workers, who contribute to our economy, yet are not treated fairly. They're not treated nicely. There's a lot of bias, prejudice, racism towards them. How could we, work and empower them, have them become U.S. citizens and eventually voters? That was the first time when I really started to really grow, when I had responsibility. I was teaching English as a second language. I never taught anything in my entire life. So now I have adults, people like my mother in the classroom, and I was responsible for them. So I had to learn, the pronouns, todos pronombres, and how I teach that, and, and about the Constitution, y las francas de la bandera, and the stars on the flag, and the significance, of that. And, I had to learn, and because I needed to make sure that I was professional and I was providing them, a professional,
the tools that they needed.
Yeah. So that made me grow a lot when I had responsibility of other people's lives, in my hands. And when I mean that, I mean the responsibility of making sure they become legal permanent residents.
Right.
Because they become legal permanent residents and they have the ability to be in the country legally.
Right.
They have the ability to work safely and then eventually become U.S. citizens. And as a result, too, they could, legalize any other family members, So it was a big responsibility, but I enjoyed it very much.
So when did you go from a small community of a classroom, like you said, taking care of them, being responsible for them, when did that change to a bigger magnitude of community cities, like a lot of people?
Like Los Angeles, Boyle Heights, to be very specific, Whittier Boulevard.
Because from a classroom to, hey, let's go do Boyle Heights.
What I did was I became the director in Santa Barbara, so I had 5 or 6 classrooms up and down the area. So on any given night, I had about 500 students. On any given night, I had about 500 students. The only other entity was the Santa Barbara Community College District that provided these types of services to immigrants. And I remember I had no students how am I going to get students? I got no students. So I would go to the hotels during the break hours. Hola, señora, ¿qué tal? Muy buenas tardes. Yo soy Keven de Leon. I would go to las huertas, the orchards, and talk to the migrant workers. And then there was a high school called Santa Barbara High School. And in the nighttime, the adult college would be providing these services. So I had muchos volantes y fui repartiendo los volantes en todos los coches. And I would stand outside the door at 9 p.m. The doors would open up y salían todos los estudiantes. Hola, señor Raúl, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo estás? Yo soy Keven de León. Yo estoy dando clases de inglés, historia. Doy las clases mucho más mejor que aquellos aquí. Yo lleno los papeles, las huellas, las fotos, lleno todos los papeles. Véngase conmigo, ¿no? En vez de tomar las clases aquí, ¿no? Y poco por poquito. So what I was doing, I was poaching students for the adult community college. They got really upset. They even called the state senator on me, who got, called. It wasn't ICE at the time. It was INS, Immigration Naturalization Service Department.
Ines.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But they would call it INS, right? And, but I just did it. You had to do bold things and big things. And then that's how my class started growing, because entre la misma raza, pues vino un joven aquí que se llama Kevin y que habla español y que están dando los mismos servicios y ella habla español, pues vamos allá con él a ver qué onda, ¿no? And then, poco por poquito. So then my class is 20 people, then at 25, 30, and then I had to go find, friends who would teach class too with me. Hey, Julio Tamayo, I remember, UC Santa Barbara student. Hey, I need to teach classes. I'll give you the curriculum. This is the hours, Monday through Thursday, 6 to 9 p.m. No puedes faltar para nada. You have to be responsible. If you have a hangover from a party you went to at college, Sunday night, I don't care. You have to be there and teach classes. And then my classes grew to about 500 students, not in each class, or separated in the classes, and that's when you get more responsibility. And the organization's headquarters was on Esperanza and Whittier Boulevard, Aimero, in Boyle Heights. Y Juan Jose Gutierrez was the executive director. And I would go to Boyle Heights a lot and teach in Boyle Heights as well, too.
This is a good midpoint of the interview to mention. This is exactly why I wanted to do these type of interviews, because I think you and I are almost the same age. And the difference here, and I wanted kids, youngsters, or young adults to listen to this part that I'm going to say right now, because here you have Keven de Leon passing out flyers to educate people, to make them better. And that's why Kevin's where he's at. And I'm here doing an interview, because while you were doing that, I was passing out party flyers. You party, waste money, get
DJ?
Get high, and you're doing the opposite. Is it so? This is where you guys say, "Whoa, do I want to be a Keven de Leon or do I want to be a Diablito?" No,
I think more people want to be Diablito.
No, I think when you get to my age, you want to be more of a Keven.
Yeah, but this is the thing, was that I never thought I would be in this world, because, when I eventually, got to college, it wasn't like I worked for a politician,
right?
Or I was an intern.
But you're beginning to the trade store. You're beginning to set your own seeds, and
but still, I think it would eventually.
Oh, because that's the whole point of planting seeds. You don't know, you plant seeds, and you forget about. Como dices tú, cosechan elote, lo que sea, and sometimes you forget. The next thing you turn around, like, oh man, it grew.
Yeah, and that's what you sembras la semilla, no, y luego después, no, la cosecha, and then it grows into something that you didn't think would happen. And I never thought, in my wildest dreams, I'd be lying to you, Diablito. If I said to you, one day I'll be an elected official, one day I will be the author of 100% clean renewable energy for the state of California. One day I'll create California to be a sanctuary state, un estado santuario, be battling Donald Trump, dealing with the homelessness crisis. Never. And of course, the two things I would add to that is strong hard work ethic. And that was my mother, my tia, strong hard work ethic. which a lot of us have.
Right.
It's been inculcated from our family members, and an insatiable appetite for curiosity. Un apetito pero gigantesco.
Right.
Enorme, por la curiosidad, it is so important. And then I think those two factors open up one door, and then open up another door, and then open up another door, and they just had that effect. And where I'm at, today.
And I think that we nailed it in this interview. It's exactly what I want kids to hear. You either it'd be your mom or your dad, or just your mom or just your dad. Showing you a good upbringing. You're from the barrio. It's not like you decided to be the driver of that car that you jumped in to go look for some guy to beat up. And like you mentioned, you were that kid in the back seat thinking, what am I doing here? And a few years later, you're knocking at a college. Let me in. They let you in. And that opened up the platforms to the other stuff that you've done. And now you're at Boyle Heights. You were center of California. And now you're here. That's exactly what I want people to know, that everything's doable, because there's so much negativity out there. And that's all we see. You brought up social media, back then we didn't have it. Yeah. So negative stuff weren't really around. There were, because you were getting your butt kicked by or getting jumped. But now social media.
But the old school way was, to me, I'm not condoning it, but the old school way was more dignified than what they do today. Social media platforms.
How many kids are not committing suicide because they can't handle an insult or a meme that they make of them, and this IA now that's coming out that's making it worse. But the bottom line is, like you said, you have good upbringings, you have strong parents that give you that knowledge, and like you said, when you first opened up your letter, it made you say, man, I got to keep going. What do I have to lose? I just got to try it. And I think that's what anyone who's watching this or listening to this podcast should really know, that they have options and they could do just about anything if they mentally prepare themselves. No, is that?
I think so. I think that you have to be strong mentally, because the world has changed quite dramatically. I do believe this is that I don't believe that I've gone to where I'm at by myself. I believe that in my path, my journey, that a lot of good people in many different ways helped me, believed in me, and lifted me up. And I've been disappointed also too by many folks in many ways, but also too the beauty is I've been very surprised by folks who have helped me who I never expected. And folks who I expected to help echarme la mano,
very few
do the opposite, actually do the opposite. So that's why that's why I'm a true believer that we help each other. That's why I'm a true believer that I did not get to where I'm at. Because what happens is a lot of politicians or, famous people or celebrities or whoever it may be, I got to where I'm at, based on my intelligence, based on my own grits, based on my own wits, based on my own inner strength, mentally. I'm a one man or one woman show, I did it all on my own. I just don't believe that. I don't subscribe to that. I think in different ways, folks help. My mother helped me. Did my mother help me con matemáticas? Para nada. Did my mother help me completar una frase, un párrafo, lectura, etcétera, etcétera? Para nada. She didn't help me, but she helped me just the strength of who she was as a woman by working, by paying the rent, by putting food on the table. And that has served as a sense of deep motivation. Truth be told, when I was in the back seat, con the homeboys, I was the youngest one. They were much older than I was, right? I was thinking, oh, Lord, ¿sabes qué? Esto va a ser una paliza, a mí me van a fregar. Soy más chico aquí, And I'm like, wow, qué pendejo soy. Why did I say yes? Here I am, we're cruising, and I remember that night. And, but, sometimes, we make mistakes, but we're not the definition of our mistakes either.
Right.
We will make a lot of mistakes, actually. And that's what life's all about. Even as adults, We'll make mistakes, but we have to learn and grow from them. And that's what's important.
Okay, so my time is almost up. Okay, 2 quick questions. What do you tell, or better yet, advise youngsters today about politics?
I think it's important to have a strong sense of your values and your principles of what you believe in. I think, especially today's day and age with social media platforms, to have an open mind, to learn and grow, not be as hardcore or strident,
right?
In your beliefs. Some beliefs are non-negotiable, but to have an open mind, also you just can't be a hard ideologue and say, this is what I believe in, and that's it, and only that. Or I'm not going to talk.
Be hard-headed.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk to so-and-so because I don't believe in their politics.
Right.
I don't believe in what they stand for. That's not real life. Real life is you have to engage with people who you vehemently, oppose in every which way imaginable. You have to learn how to negotiate. I think that's important. I think you have to work hard, which is really, really important. I know aspirations or ambition is important. Right. I wasn't as ambitious back in the day. I ran for office, and I didn't think I was going to win. When I ran for state assembly, I thought esto va a ser una paliza. It's going to be bad, Pero salí ganando. And then just one thing led to another. So work hard, have an open mind. You don't have to be dogmatic.
Right.
It's my way or the highway. You have to have an open mind. I think that with social media platforms, believe it or not, algorithms have controlled a lot of way people are thinking in many different ways.
We can't even think for ourselves.
Yeah, and that's what my fear is. Today, algorithms are folks are waking up and say, okay, the algorithm is telling me how to think, how to feel. Am I angry? Am I outraged today? Am I happy? Am I sad? And I mean that across the board with everybody, not just one particular generation. Whereas back in our days,
it was just it was a feeling. Let's go.
That's it. Let's do it, baby.
Last question. What do you tell the youngsters, or even explain to yourself, or how do you explain to yourself that in this country with over 300 billion people, that you and I only have 2 options for voting for president of the United States? It's like my wife's a teacher and she doesn't even feel like telling kids anymore, you could be president one day, because it's like,
I would say this is the circumstances are as they are today, and there's really 2, choices, and they're very stark. The choices are as night and day between Trump and Joe Biden. And for a lot of young folks, they may not find Biden very exciting. I understand that completely, 100%. I do understand also too that if Donald Trump were to win, back in the day when he was putting our children in cages, that's going to happen again. That he's going to find some fashion to take a naturalized citizen who's now a U.S. citizen of this country and figure out how he can strip away their naturalization, their citizenship. Or if you're a legal permanent resident, he's going to try to figure out some way how he can take your legal residency away.
Right.
Porque si no votamos, los votan. Así de sencillo.
Pero how do you tell these kids that they have a shot to be a president, though? Like, what do you tell them? Because it looks almost impossible, because it's the same 2 people again.
I think what you're saying is there's not people who look like us.
Or not us.
Right. Just
normal, just other candidates. Like, why is it only 2? Why can't there be like 4 options? Like, okay,
if you want a multi-party, options, I think that does exist. Whether it's the Green Party, the Peace and Freedom Party,
but they're not
the term right. They're not as popular. There's no doubt about it. Historically, it has been the Democratic Party and the GOP Party. I'm a Democrat. I'll always be a Democrat. I've started as a Democrat. If there's other political parties who wish to grow and promote their platform and whether it's ideology or the values and principles, they have that right to do that.
Sure.
And for any young person who says, you know what, this is the political party that I want to subscribe to, or this is the political party that I want to start, they have that right. They have that freedom, to do so in this country. I know it is difficult, without a doubt. You have 2 primarily incumbent, political parties, but be very clear. I started as a Democrat, and, when I'm 6 feet under, I'm going to be a Democrat as well, too. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here on our podcast.
Al contrario.
Thank you for sharing the insights and just motivating our youngsters and young adults who sometimes think that they can't do anything. And they surely can if they really le echan las ganas on road.
Sí, sin lugar a dudas, échale ganas, ¿no? Échale ganas, arre, ¿no? Para adelante, ¿no? Y mi onda es con la entrevista. Gracias. Ay, te reduce el video, gracias.
Bueno, chavos, eso fue todo el día de hoy. Al final del día, la neta, más allá de los cargos, los títulos o las polémicas que tuvo durante, obviamente durante su tiempo como City Council Member de Los Ángeles, todos vienen de algún lugar, ¿no? Antes de ser político, antes de ser funcionario, antes de ser una figura pública, Keven de León fue un morro en la escuela, fue un chamaco de barrio, alguien tratando de encontrar su camino. Y eso no justifica decisiones, pero sí explica el proceso. Porque si no entendemos de dónde viene alguien, ¿cómo diablos vamos a entender por qué llegó hasta donde llegó? Imagínense eso, tuvo una oficina en el City Hall de Los Ángeles. It was amazing, city. It was a very beautiful office, let me tell you. De hecho, ahí lo grabamos y por alguna razón el video no salió muy bien. Nada más el cachito que andamos poniendo en el Instagram de Como Diablos, solo que se grabó. Pero en fin, esto fue Como Diablos. Gracias nuevamente por escuchar. Nos escuchamos en el próximo episodio. No se olviden que cada martes tenemos un nuevo episodio con un empresario, con un artista, con alguien que realmente lo ha hecho en este mundo, ¿no? Que hace lana. Y también recuerden que los jueves tenemos lo que he nombrado yo los Como Diablos Express, en donde nada más tengo una simple pregunta y la vamos a discutir aquí en Como Diablos los jueves. Gracias nuevamente por estar conmigo, chavos. I really do appreciate it. You guys are the best. Make sure you guys follow us on our social medias de Como Diablos. Síganos ahí en YouTube, ahí en Instagram, en TikTok. Y los vemos muy pronto. Gracias nuevamente por estar aquí en Como Diablos. I am out of here.